Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This is the very last lecture in our 10,000 foot overview. This is part 4. We've only got 2 services left. So we were just talking about artificial intelligence. Do check out that book by Nick Bostrom. It is really good. It is a bit of a dry read, but the stuff he says in there is super important. AI is by far the big thing to watch in the next 10 to 15 or 20 years. And by all means, basically Nick says that AI, human level intelligence, is not a stop. It's basically a freight train. You hit human level intelligence, then you hit super intelligence after that, and it could happen very quickly. So definitely keep an eye out for AI. So in terms of AI at reInvent 2016, it was a major theme. For those of you who have heard of Alexa, it's Amazon's voice service in the cloud. You use it, basically communicate to Alexa using an Echo. And essentially all you're doing is you're talking to Lambda. Now what drives that service is actually what's inside the Alexa service, and it's called Lex. So Lex was announced at reInvent 2016, and it means that you no longer necessarily need an Echo to communicate to Alexa. You can basically just start creating software. You can embed her in all kinds of different devices. We then have Polly, and Polly basically takes any text and turns it into voice. It can turn it into MP3 files, for example. And Polly is the same technology that helps Alexa render her voice. Now, Polly is available in a whole bunch of different voices, a whole bunch of different languages. It's super advanced stuff. It is very new, so it won't feature in any of the exams. However, we do use it in the course. What we're going to do later on in the course is we're going to create a serverless application which converts all the notes that you're going to write when you're studying into MP3 files, and then you can listen to these notes on the go. So you'll be able to download them, render them in any voice that you want, and then you'll be able to listen to them as basically sort of like a podcast. So you can still study and not be in front of your computer. So I would encourage you to take notes throughout this course. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Plain text is fine, because when you convert it to Polly, you've got to have just plain text anyway. But we will be using Polly later on in the course, and that lab is actually one of my favorites. It's so much fun to go out and make something, and this is really cutting edge stuff. Machine learning has actually been out for a little while. Machine learning again doesn't feature in any of the exams, but basically you give AWS a data set, you tell it what the outcomes are based on that data set. So whether or not a customer bought, perhaps the data set might be their age, their name, their address, what their occupation is, whether they're married, how many children they have, etc. Then Amazon will then use machine learning to analyze that data set, and then you can predict outcomes based on that data set for future decisions. So you might have a customer come to your site who fits your profile perfectly. Perhaps you've got an online men's gift shop, and somebody arrives at your site who's a 32-year-old male who's married with 2 children. That's a perfect candidate for you. Whereas if a 70-year-old woman came on, that might not be a good fit for you, or it could be because she's buying her her son a Father's Day, or I don't know, a birthday present. So machine learning basically allows you to predict data based on previous performance, not in the exam. And then the newest, service for AI was Recognition. Recognition is a great service. Basically, you can upload a picture to it, and it will tell you what's in that picture. It will give you tags, so it will tell you that there's a person, there's a mountain bike, there's a crest, it's outdoors, there's a rock. It also uses facial recognition, so you can compare faces in databases. So you could build up a database of faces, and then when somebody uploads a picture, you could say whether or not that person is recognized, and it will give you a percentage recognition. So that is Recognition. Again, completely brand new services, doesn't feature in any of the exams, but these are all pretty powerful services launched by AWS. Moving on to messaging, and messaging does come up in all 3 associate exams. So SNS is Simple Notification Services. This is a way of notifying you either via email or via text message, for example. There's a whole different ways of publishing using SNS. You can even publish to HTTP or HTTPS endpoints. We will cover this in our lab. We then have SQS. Again, this really comes up a lot in the Certified Solutions Architect Associate exam, as well as a Certified Developer Associate exam. You need to understand SQS. SQS is a way of decoupling your applications. Basically, it's a queue system, so you can post jobs to a queue. The way I like to remember this is, let's say you've got a website that generates memes. So somebody uploads a picture to the website and then puts some funny writing across it. Basically, SQS will store that as a job, and then your EC2 instance, which actually creates the picture and then puts the text over the picture, will poll the SQS queue looking for jobs, and it will say, oh look, somebody wants to create a new meme. It'll go through and create that meme for you. Now, if your EC2 instance dies during that process, the message is still stored in SQS, and it will become visible later on, and then another EC2 instance will pick it up. So it's just a way of decoupling your application so that you have no tightly coupled dependencies. And again, if that doesn't make a lot of sense, we will have an entire section or a couple of lectures on this later on in the course. And then we have simple email service, and this is basically a way of sending and receiving emails using AWS. It does come up in the exams, and we will have a lab on it in the course. Okay, so I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh my god, look at all these different sections and then all the different services that fall under this section. So I'm going to remind you again, remember, you only need to know certain sections in order to pass the Certified Solutions Architect Associate exam. Really, it's these sections. So your global infrastructure, you're going to need to understand the difference between a region and an availability zone. Remember, a region is a geographical area, whereas an availability zone, think of an actual physical data center. You're going to need to understand networking and content delivery, compute, databases, storage, security and identity, and in particular identity access management, which we're going to cover off in the very next section of the course. Management tools really is around CloudFormation for the Solutions Architect Associate exam. Desktop and app streaming only, very high level. You just need to understand what Workspaces is. Here's a hint, it's virtual desktop in the cloud, so if you want to run VDI in the cloud, you use Workspaces, and that's literally all you really need to know. And then messaging, we're going to have a bunch of different labs on the various messaging components. So it does seem like an awful lot, but we will walk you through it. You've been really, really patient to get this far. Go have a really long break and then come and join me in the next section of the course, where we're going to discuss IAM, and we're going to start logging into the AWS console and getting our hands dirty. So if you've got the time, join me in the next lecture. Thank you.